This is happening.
Good morning, meat suits. Welcome to a very special episode of Read It and Weep, a podcast about movies and friendship. This is a special Season 5 bonus episode. What happens is sometimes a topic is so important, so topical, so crucial to our conversation that it rises up and takes over the schedule. Also sometimes, sometimes Hunter's Thanksgiving travel plans change on short notice and he's in a car now and can't record, and so we had to pull an audible and talk about something else that he wouldn't be offended about us talking about without him. So this week, we're doing a very special episode about Andor. I'm your host, Alex Falcone, recording as always from North Koreatown, Los Angeles. And I'm joined by a very special panel. First up, he's at Anthony Lopez. Part 2 on Twitter, he's in Southeast Portland. And I think his name is Anthony, but no one gives us their real name around here. It's Anthony Lopez.
Hey, it's great to be here. It's been a long time since I've watched just the first episodes you guys watched, and I don't want to spoil something because I don't remember what's in the first 3 episodes, what's in the 4th episodes.
Right.
So there's a lot of great quotes and jokes I could make for this, but I'm afraid I would ruin something.
I'll help you out with this. If something interesting happened, it was probably after episode 3.
Ooh, I see how it is, Alex.
Also,
we should
joining
just
us.
find out. Just tell us what the last thing is that happened. I think that would be helpful as a backstop.
Yeah.
And all.
We will. I will.
Oh,
Okay, so
well,
also joining us today, he's in Northern California, and he's so proud of himself. He's so fat and satisfied. It's Ezra Fox.
I also don't remember this reference.
That was about the whole empire.
No, that's just an insult. That's just him saying that to you. It's really fucked up. I don't know
where
where
to steal from.
I can't imagine that you'd ever steal from me, Alex.
Yeah,
I can't even conceive of it. You're just gonna walk in though and do it.
There you go. You caught up. Also, joining us is nobody else. That's it. That's the whole panel. Hunter's in a car somewhere driving to Thanksgiving. Before we start the show,
Alex, question. Do you not like this? Because when soon as cereal came on the screen, the little fascist bootlicker boy who loves following the rules and really hates that people aren't doing their paperwork, you were like, oh my God.
It was cute.
You're like, oh my God, that's who I would be in the Star Wars universe. I would absolutely be the guy who was like, you are not crossing your I's and dotting your T's. There are rules and you need to follow them.
Guys need to be better fascists.
Obviously, that guy sucks and I'm anti-fascist, but I will say it's cute that he tailored his own uniform, and it's a little weird that our hero murdered someone in cold blood. So it's a weird opening for us caring about people.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah?
It wasn't in cold blood. That was to cover his tracks for a very justifiable murder. I think that's still good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's still cold blood if you've already finished. The guy's like, hey, we can get away with this. And you're like, nah, there's no risk. Dead man tell no tales. Blam.
It's one of my... I think that's a very horrifying thing in real life. But it's one of those movie and TV tropes that gets me so fucking hyped. The opening of Heat opens the same way, right? When they're robbing the armored vehicle. The one psychopath guy kills one cop. And the other 2 characters, without even thinking or saying anything, just execute everyone else.
Yeah.
And it's that look, you've already killed one. It makes no difference if you kill the others.
This is the Pringles defense?
Well, it's the there is literally
Pringles defense for mass murder.
There's literally
issue
no
here,
difference.
Anthony, is you sound a little fascist just on the other side of fascist.
No.
This is where the good guys become fascists. You have to be better than them. You have to not execute people.
No, fuck that. Okay, fuck that noise. First off, I really wish you guys could keep watching the show because this is exactly what the show is dealing with.
I'm further along.
Okay, this is exactly what the themes that the show deals with so excellently.
Look, all I'm saying is you assigned me 3 episodes. I watched 4 because I was like, surely something will start happening because it feels like the end of 3 is now stuff is going to turn up, and they were like, let's take it down a notch again. Let's rebuild. Let's chill. Everybody chill.
I mean, this show, the reason I love it so much is that
we got other stuff to do. We'll come back to this. First, before we start talking about Star Wars,
you can just talk shit and then just be like, no, we'll come back to it.
Yes, that's the host. I get to throw in little barbs and then do the rest of the script. Before we start the show, I'd like to thank all of our fabulous meat buddies. who support our show, despite ample evidence to the contrary that they should not be doing that. Especially today, I want to thank Brandon, whose name is spelled like it might be Briandon, and I just don't know.
What does that mean?
Breandan.
Oh,
Do you guys know how to
odd.
say this?
That is an odd spelling.
Wait.
I know.
Oh, I would maybe. Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Man.
Brandon. Brendan. Brendan.
Whoa,
Cool.
I don't know. I got lots of options.
We got
What
lots
if
of.
he's just
I did reach out, but only.
very?
I reached out too close to Showtime asking for a clarification.
What if
We're
it's
gonna
just
call
like
him B.
very Irish and it's just like Brendan?
I assume that that's what it is. That it's like an Irish spelling.
Okay, wait. This is Googleable. Just
I don't know. Does Brendan answer Google's?
no. I mean, just as in you can at least do like the YouTube of like how to pronounce this name.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube might have a guess, but I don't know if that's how Brendan does it. Anyway, B.
Well, YouTube says it's Brandon.
Oh no, that's not even an extra. That's the wrong letters that they're fixing.
Well, look, the A had a slashy on this one. I'm not sure if like it had.
Oh man. Anyway, we're gonna call you B. B from NC, who's our meat buddy of the day, and we'll come back. We'll hear more about
BNC. Like you're a droid. I like it.
You too can donate and have us butcher your name for 5 minutes.
Look, it's been max minute and a half. We could keep going if you want. I don't think B is not a high enough meat buddy level for us to continue mispronouncing their name for this month, this long.
Next week we're just gonna be like, we want to thank. I think it's Steven or Stefan. I don't know. I can't really spell it.
Stovetop.
Anyway, if you want to join me and help, if you want to get this kind of an intro and help support our show, you can keep the show limping down the tracks by going to Metreon.com. And we really appreciate everybody who supports the show. Okay, before we talk about Star Wars, let's talk about segment 1, the news. Ezra, what is happening in donut news this week?
I hope you guys are getting ready to be grateful, because that's what my donuts want me to do right now.
It's that time.
Yeah, so we have to share. We have to share your thanks in so many ways with this offer. mini. So
many ways.
So many ways. So we are still doing Thanksgiving mini pie donuts. And people like that. And so you're going to be giving these mini pie donuts to people. And that's how, that's how it's happening.
I did not expect to do this for a non-sponsored thing in the show, but you've kind of made me feel like this is a fun newsletter to get. And I do not like their donuts, but just a donut newsletter to be like, here's a holiday mashed up with a donut.
Oh,
I feel like there was real news when we started this in here, and that's slowly been taken over by the
changing news segment is the ethos of the news segment. No matter what I do, you don't like it.
I should say also, this is important. Whatever pumpkins are, it's ending.
So we're done with pumpkins.
Tomorrow, yeah. As of the 24th, no more pumpkin spice lattes.
Do you guys feel like I feel like pumpkin as a flavor is overperforming? Do you guys? I feel like it's shot the moon the last few years, and as a flavor, it's okay.
Well, I mean, it's great marketing, but I think like you get a pumpkin spice deficiency in your body throughout most of the year, and then you build it up, and then you're good for a while, and that's how stuffing is for me. Also,
that's the thing I don't understand about people who complain about pumpkin is like, dude, it's like 3 months out of the fucking year. Grow up, all right? Like, stop.
I'm not mad. I'm just
I'm not saying you. I'm not saying you. I'm saying I hear people all the time going off about like, this fucking pumpkin shit is everywhere, and it's like, dude,
it is. So we shop a lot at Trader Joe's, and Trader Joe's whole philosophy is they find a flavor and then they try to ruin it for you. So there is just a day, but they're like. The shampoo is now pumpkin, and the shelving units are made out of pumpkin. And if you like ravioli, that is it's pumpkin on the inside, and it's a pumpkin noodle on the outside.
So here's the thing: you don't want it at some point, but because you hit your max. But like, I would be interested to try some of these with their everything bagel stuff. right? Like what's everything bagel ravioli? Like what's everything bagel?
Okay, so they have been slowly rolling out everything but the bagel flavors of everything. There's everything but the bagel seasoning chips. They find a flavor. They're like, oh man, cookie butter was great. Now we have cookies made of cookie butter, and I just feel like that is too many levels. Imagine the way the cookie must feel that it was made into a cookie, crushed into a butter, and then spread on another cookie. It's just insulting to that. It feels like a vendetta more than
I wasn't cooking
flavor.
enough for you the first time. Get the cookie in.
It feels kind of mean. I just think that pumpkin, I would just say overall, like my theory is we've overcorrected on how much people want pumpkin, and I think it's going to fade the next few years. It's going to be
all mint for the next couple months, and then you'll miss your pumpkins. You'll miss your pumpkin when everything's green.
Somebody got a really good deal on pumpkin like 8 years ago, and we're still feeling the ramifications. Of that, right?
Yeah, it's like the way fajitas were made because that steak was really cheap. I feel like we were like, wow, pumpkins are basically free. Let's make everything out of it.
But yeah, it feels like it. It kind of comes and goes. Some people get very excited for it. Some people get very annoyed at it.
I'm in between. I just think it's overperforming as a flavor. I think it's fine. I also think that as a species, one thing that's cute about us is if you tell us something is a limited time, we like it way more.
Oh yeah.
Like people only like roasted turkey on Thanksgiving. No one in March is asking for roasted turkey for dinner. Like there's a thing about it. I don't believe anyone thinks the McRib is a great sandwich, but they were just smart enough to put it in the vault for 9 months a year. Like people just love a time limited thing.
I love this idea of there being only one vault for like all the Disney movies and also McRibs.
The Little Mermaid and the McRib and Pumpkin are all in the same vault.
Yeah. It's the time lock.
Speaking of things going into and coming out of the vault, Anthony, you want to do some hard news? We're talking about a Disney Plus thing today. So let's go into the news. Tell me what's going on with the Bobs.
Well, okay, first off, I want to say I wasn't criticizing this segment for not having real news. I was saying when we started the Krispy Kreme newsletter, there was real news in that.
I got that.
Yeah, I wasn't criticizing the segment. I was saying I think the Krispy Kreme editorial team has really been sleeping on the job.
Very fair.
Really let marketing take over what used to be a respectable journalistic outlet. And I think that's a goddamn shame. I think we're seeing it. We're seeing it happening in the Twitter right now. We're seeing it happen in the Krispy Kreme. But like these important media outlets are being snuffed out by big business who just want to sell us shit. And it's tragic.
Put the news back in the Krispy Kreme newsletter. We all want it.
Exactly. I just think
I would love if after they were like, celebrate with our grateful mini donuts. Also, did you see about the war in Ukraine? I think that would be a solid pitch for the newsletter.
Krispy Kreme's man on the ground in Poland trying to find out where that rocket came from.
And they're just, whatever it is, they're like, you don't want to tell us? Would you tell us if I gave you a dozen fresh donuts?
Yeah. I like the idea of a bribery where it's just like, you're just like doing one donut at a time, though, where it's like, how about now? How about now? How about now? You're just stacking it up. What will it take?
Well, how many is this going to take for you to tell us? Okay, Anthony, now catch us up. Your good Bob is in, bad Bob is back out. Tell us what's going on with the Bob swap.
Bob swap.
Yeah, so Bob swap. We have a Bob swap on the field, ladies and gentlemen.
2022 Bob swap.
2022 Bob swap. So this is sort of because all news and entertainment kind of relates back to Disney since they sort of own half of all of it. But yeah, so Bob Chapek, who, if you have listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you have heard me and only me on this podcast mention him by name. No one else cares.
Bob Chapek is bad Bob.
Yeah, Bob Chapek is a bad Bob. He was he started running the Perks and he used to be kind of okay with it. Bob Iger, who took over from Michael Eisner years ago and oversaw. Well, I mean, I don't know if he's good Bob, but he's certainly drastically had an effect on his time at Disney, right? If you look at sort of like the Michael Eisner run to Bob Iger's run, sort of what he took Disney from like one of the biggest entertainment companies to the biggest entertainment company, and he did that by they tried to make a bunch of original movies and they all bombed. So Bob was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna go buy all the movies. That's what I'm gonna do. I got Disney money. I don't give a shit."
You want a Bob buying spree?
yeah, so like I don't know how great that is, but you can't argue his results with in terms of like the properties he buy, the way he sort of executed all of them, even though some of them aren't great. The way he sort of changed the theme parks and expanded those, built new ones across the world, all this sort of stuff Bob Iger did. Then Bob Chapek took over a few years ago, and from day one, basically shit the bed. Bob Chapek is a sort of mean spirited, incredibly paranoid, petty man who's a real penny pincher. The first thing he did was get in that big lawsuit with Scarlett Johansson. He,
Nice. And if
massively reduced.
I'm gonna side with ScarJo over any
Yeah.
Bob.
Yeah, he massively reduced salary. He turned the amusement parks into the way I've sort of heard it described a lot from, amusement park people on the internet and on Twitter and stuff. Is that his philosophy is basically turning the parks into pay to win mobile games. They're very sort of microtransaction heavy, is what they feel like. They're all about catering towards the whales, not the normal customers. That's why there's like 5,000. There's a $5,000 shot at the Star Wars theme park, right?
Right.
He's just turned.
And that shot is you get to shoot one poor person.
Yeah, well, they bring in a poor person with duct tape over their mouth and a Greedo mask, and they sit them in front of you.
And they're like, "Who's going to shoot first?" We give them a gun.
Yeah, and I was like, "No, they have a gun, but their hands are bound, and it's on the side.
I don't
they
love
can
this.
get to it first. They win."
Look, this is the bad Bob, as that's why you're upset.
Yeah,
it's the least dangerous game.
Yeah. But like Bob Chapek was the guy at D23 this year. He got booed when he came out on stage, which is basically unheard of in a situation like that. D23 is nothing but weird Disney mega fans, and Disney
this is stands and
love
sycophants. This are
everything
people who
the
like
company
them.
does. Yeah, and like when like those fans are coming in and booing you, he is basically he's canceled a bunch of great products. He's turned Pixar from one of the premier movie studios and production houses to basically a straight to Disney Plus streaming company. Like he has completely ruined the way people view Pixar movies.
Not the first time someone's tried to do that to Pixar, by the way. It's just this time it took.
Yeah. He has hurt the brands in a lot of ways, and he also over the last year fired everyone he viewed as competition within the hierarchy of Disney. So that's why they had to bring Bob Iger back. I think it's I always think it's sad when a company or any kind of team or organization sort of has to go backwards rather than going forwards. Like I would have appreciated if they could hire somebody new. But I mean, I'm sure Bob Iger's only going to be in the role for a year or two.
I'm sure his main job is to find a new Bob to run this company.
But that's the thing. We know that's the one thing he's bad at, right? Like
he does. Yeah, his tenure at Disney, his worst skill was hiring a replacement.
So let's have him do that again.
0 for 1. But it does feel like because his name is Bob Allen, Bob Chapek's name is Bob Allen. It does feel like he maybe got blinded by similarity of name, and he was an Eisner to Iger transition, so it feels like he's focused on the name transition. Where will he find another Robert Allen to take over the company?
Here's what we learned: last name sounded like that's okay, I guess.
That's true. That works better.
The middle name, that's where the issue is.
Just his handing over the company feels a little bit like John G. Like killed my looking for the John G.
Find another Bob A.
Right, he's just got to find another Rob A to take over, and
well, there was a third Bob. So for a long time, the
what?
Three, for a long time, I think
Krispy Kreme didn't even mention this Bob to me.
Got left around the time that Bob Chapek took over, but for a long time, the three heads of Disney were all named Bob, and they were called the Three Bobs, and they were people we have a meeting with the Bobs.
But
it's not great for any big corporation to sort of be, this powerful or whatever. But like, I do think
this should 100% be broken up. This company is insane. It should not be allowed to exist like this.
The thing with Bob Chapek is like, I guarantee you, if Bob Iger had still been around, DeSantis would not have pulled that shit in Florida, right? I'm true. I'm honest. Like he would not have done that to a more established seasoned person who really
better
knew
Bob.
A more
knew what they were
experienced
doing.
Bob, yeah.
Yeah, it was because Bob Chapek kind of proved himself to be incompetent and proved himself to be kind of spineless and cheap and not someone who wants to get into fights, that DeSantis was able to like pull stuff on Disney between like taking away like their weird little fiefdom they run, which is like whatever. But the fact that they tried it, the way he like stared down and Disney backed down on the "Don't Say Gay" bill stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
this is all stuff that if you have somebody who like still cares about the bottom line, but like one of the things that Bob Iger is good at is understanding that like Disney as a brand, the idea, like the cleanliness and the sort of like the spotless record is more important than any like short-term gain, right? Like making sure we have a brand that people respect going into the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 50 years or whatever. That is far more important than making money today. And that's why like he has as a business, which is not the greatest thing, but like Disney has stood up for more progressive causes in certain ways over the past few years,
Yeah.
slowly working in like it's kind of annoying how often they are like, we have a first queer character or whatever. But at least they're like trying something like that, which is something you don't see other big animation houses doing, right? Or
Right.
big studios even doing, right? They are sort of like working towards something which I respect. And Bob Chapek seemed to have no interest in and cut the purse strings and fired a bunch of people. Like when the Fox merger, a bunch of stuff like Blue Sky Animations was a really, really talented animation house. Made a lot of stuff over the years rather than bringing them in, turning them into a different animation arm for Disney Animation Studio, for Pixar. He just laid off the entire studio and fired everyone there, scattered them all to the winds. It's a real shame what he's done. It was a net loss to like art forms and movies and entertainment, and I'm glad he's out, and I hope he rots in hell.
Well, I think he's still alive. But speaking of art products that have been taken over by new daddies, let's talk about Star Wars on Disney Plus in the game. This is segment 2. It's not technically the game because we're taking the game off this week. This is a bonus episode, but this week we are talking about Andor, the 2022 American science fiction action adventure television series running on Disney Plus, created by Tony Gilroy, who we know on this show from Michael Clayton, and you may know from the Bourne movies. So if you are into a spy thriller Star Wars thing, this might be your chance. Also, this is in the line of the Baby Yoda series in its design, its look, and its pacing. It's starring Diego Luna.
That's not true at all. That is
Adria Arjona and Stellan Skarsgård, and a bunch of other people and robots. So season 1 just wrapped up as of this recording, but Ezra and Anthony, I assume, are caught up. But I have only watched 4 episodes.
I'm like halfway through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have not watched the finale yet. I was going to do that today.
Oh, interesting. So you're close to the end, as in the middle, and I've watched 4 out of 11. The first 3 dropped at the same time and is basically a 2-hour-long pilot for the show. And then I watched episode 4 to see where it was going to go from there, which is good because now I know there's a heist show in this show. It's a heist show. Took them 2 hours and 30 minutes to announce that it's a heist show, but they got there. But I will only be able to spoil you through 4. Ezra can spoil you through 6, and Anthony through 10. So let me give you, though, my summary, mostly just of the first 3, because this is the one that dropped together as a pilot. You should understand this. After that, we'll be more cautious about spoilers. But here's my patented 5-point micro summary of the pilot of Andor. Cassian Andor, it's his name. It's not a moon. That's confusing. Anyway, Cassian Andor is a classic Star Wars scoundrel type who does light property crime, all while trying to find his sister at a space brothel, where he accidentally, on purpose, executes a couple of mall security guards, triggering the rest of the events of the series. He's also got a bit of an accent because he's from space Mexico. At first, the people in charge of the rent-a-cops don't really care that much because they're busy juking the space stats. But then the foppish one with the extra ribbon detailing on his uniform decides that he's a bit, I don't know, fascism curious. And as soon as the boss walks away from his desk, takes over and sends in a bunch of troops to go find Mr. Andor. So Andor has 2 choices. He can fight and or flight, and decides that he's going to go put his luck in with trying to leave with Stellan Skarsgård, who shows up and is like, "Hey, you're a young genius. Let me take you under my wing, and we'll do math equations together, and I'll introduce you to my fun friends and get you a job." Then his friends, he goes to his friend's moon, and they're like doing a space heist, which seems fun. That's as far as I've gotten. And then in between all of this, there's a lot of flashbacks because Andor grew up on a planet called Space Lord of the Space Flies, and that's what he's been up to. And that is the show Andor. That's the premise. That's what it is. It's a heist with Stellan Skarsgård and Lord of the Flies flashbacks.
Well, Lord of the Flies was like, I think it was just like an indigenous population that was like not exposed, not like necessarily like a.
They're all children.
I mean that we saw.
There's a whole village run by children, and we've seen no adults in that village.
Yeah, because all the adults are dead on the planet because the Empire killed them all.
This is what I'm assuming. Yeah. This has not happened as of episode 4, but yes. I feel like...
But also, it's really not very important to the rest of the plot. I mean, one of the things I really like about
Andor... Despite it taking up hours of screen time, it did feel like
hours.
This is
it's
not...
like 10 minutes over 3 episodes.
Boy, they drag out. My least favorite part was the children on the mining planet. It was exhausting.
Let me get some counterbalance to here. I think this show is incredible. I think we have had a very, very incredible year of television.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of really good shows this year. I think this is one of my top 5 of the year easily. And like I said, it's been a lot of great stuff.
Did you feel that way after the first 3 episodes?
I mean, I was into it, but it definitely is a slow burn. I think that you comparing it to like The Mandalorian or whatever is really off base, in my opinion. This is definitely much more slow paced. It's much more methodical. It's much more smarter, better dialogue, and it's not using any of the digital background technology that the Mandalorian.
No, they're like for sure in New Zealand for part of it.
No, they're in London.
Oh, they're in London. That the part that looks like Luke's hideout island that was near New Zealand. With the puffins?
No, yeah. So, I believe most of the show was shot in the UK around Pinewood.
That does make sense. There's a lot of like space Scottish accents.
Yeah,
but yeah, the scale, the production, the set design, the world building. I have not watched the final episode. Very fair.
All I'm saying, my comparison is from when we talked about this last year, where they made the Space Baby show, and they were like, "Oh, you like chill Star Wars shows? We can chill." And then this is a very chill show.
I mean, I think
a slow, chill show, and
I don't think it's chill. I think it is dealing with, again, you'll get there if you keep watching it. But the way this is why
I watched 4, because I watched 3, and I was like, Anthony has told me repeatedly this is the best show that's ever existed, and this is what all Star Wars should be. And you're not the only one. And the first 3 episodes are kind of boring. Not kind of boring. They're pretty boring. And I was like, I'm not going to come on here and be the ignorant one who's bored out of his mind after 2 hours. So I watched another 40 minutes and I was like, okay, it's a little better. I see where it might be going. But man, you could have gotten that done in 25. Those 3 episodes should have been 1 episode for sure.
I disagree.
Skarsgård not showing up until episode 3 is like that is a company that is like, we have your attention, we know it, we're not going to try to earn it. We don't need to worry about you leaving.
There's a reason why they released all 3 at once, right? Because they
realized that was a pilot and it was 2 hours and it should have been 40 minutes.
No, I don't think they thought it should have been 40 minutes. They were happy with the length it is. I really like the slow burn of this show. I like the methodical nature. I like the way that this show is about exploring life under a fascist regime. The way the show is about exploring
ready for that to start.
Insurgency and rebellion tactics, both of the rebellions, in an incredible Star Wars way. I think this show is, again, I have not seen the final episode. I'm going to watch that tonight. I'm very excited for it. I think if the final episode lands well, I will feel comfortable saying this is easily the best Star Wars thing Disney has done, and maybe one of like the top 3 Star Wars things ever made. I was not a big fan of Rogue One. I don't like that movie very much.
I like it.
But I love this show. I think this show is so incredibly brilliant. Such a well-acted, well-realized drop into the Star Wars universe, and what this show is like really getting at, like what this show is actually about, once you kind of sort of get through it. Because like the heist, again, like I don't really want to spoil anything for you, but like I thought the show also at this point was like going to be a heist show. The heist is going to
If
happen.
it's not, then this is unconscionably slow.
No, the heist is going to happen. It happens much earlier than you think, and then a bunch more stuff happens. The way the show, like the way it evolves and slowly becomes this study of like this character and like what it would be like living under there and what it's like to actually build an insurgency to fight a revolution, the cost of that, and the way it really asks fascinating questions. And sort of like the main thing the show is getting at, like I was saying, is not that is that revolution and fighting fascist states and all these things are not won by Luke Skywalkers. They're won by thousands of unnamed heroes who do the right thing or do the wrong thing, but do something.
Yeah, this is being led again by a person who executed somebody for no good reason.
No, there was a good reason.
No, he could have just left. And what would have been the advantage? The cops have been behind him by 8 minutes. He bought himself no time with that man's life. In fact, almost certainly would have been more likely to get away with it if he hadn't been a double murder.
I have a question.
I don't really give a shit about anyone who works for the Empire getting killed. You can execute all of them.
He works for the corporation. He does not work for the Empire.
Who works for the Empire? Yes.
Well, I thought that was one of the things that was
subcontractor, right?
Yeah, he's a subcontractor.
A subcontractor who's like harassing people at the brothel.
He's a douche, and that is not punishable by death. I am against murder, and I don't know why I have to be the weird voice who's like, I'm not into murdering. Even fascists. I don't mind punching a fascist. You go to a fascist parade, you slap a fascist, great time. I'm against murder. Seems like it should be a fairly defensible position here.
Alex, I think the thing, like totally can agree with that. Put it aside for the second. I think the thing I'm just on a story side that I'm really curious about. Did you care about him, and did this feel dangerous to you? I guess because I think that's like if it's a slow burn and it feels dangerous for the first few episodes,
Alex,
then you're like it's tense and you're interested. If you're like, you know what, I don't actually care what happens to this guy, then that's going to be boring. And so I'm kind of curious, like, where did you get in? Like, were you with the character or not? Because I think that might
Alex,
be
let's put your knives away for a second. Let's talk. Let's talk about what you enjoyed here, because I know you had to enjoy something here.
Oh no,
There's a really good droid.
I'll probably keep watching the show. It's like it's boring, but in a way that I'll do. But I watched it with my wife, and she fell asleep when she wasn't that tired, like to spite it. I think she fell asleep out of spite. She was so bored, and I felt responsible for that. So part of it's that.
I mean, the context in which we watch a thing, we don't always get to talk about that, but that is going to be a big shift on things as well.
That's a part of it. Oh, like, and for me, I watch boring stuff all the time. It's justifiable, but when I'm watching in a group, I'm like, we should try harder. This should be better. I was like I was looking for ways into it. The thing about Space Baby show is that it's like a pretty boring first episode, and then you meet Baby Yoda, and you're like, oh shit, there's something going on here. And then the rest
Wolf
of the
and
show,
Cub and a Westone combined, right?
Yeah,
it's like
which is super interesting.
Trope.
To me, and I loved that show, and I will continue to watch that show when it comes back. And I went into this being like, I'm done with Star Wars. This franchise has jumped 1,000 space sharks. This has no business. Like you get no more of my time, Disney. You've wasted too much of it. I do not care about this universe at all. And then everybody said, including you, this is the best thing that's ever happened. So I was like really excited for it. And there are a few things like the droid's all right. The idea that a droid needs to be fully charged to lie. Hilarious. Great conceit. That's very charming. The droid is a little bit charming.
Sad boy. He makes me very sad.
The droid?
Yeah, they did a good job making
his front articulates in a way that makes you sad for this abused droid.
It's sad accordion droid.
Yeah. He's like really old and has like droid dementia or something. Yes. And they explore this kind of later on in the show, and it's it's very,
he's just
very
got a droid stutter so far because he has like a slow modem or something. I do not care about him in the first 3 episodes. I think the show only starts when Skarsgård lands. As soon as he gets there, you're like, oh, there's something interesting happening in this world. But to that point, this is just a guy who was looking for his sister, who he hasn't seen in like, it seems 30 years. since he was pulled off this Lord of the Flies planet, and he's just wandering around asking for her in different places. And and the way the show sets up the first 3 episodes is just like nobody likes him, nobody trusts him. He's not good at anything yet. There's implications he might be good at something, but he's done nothing good. The only thing redeemable is that he's a really sweet droid and a nice mom who he almost gets killed. And
Everyone
all we know is that he's done a murder.
Everybody likes him. Everyone, the whole community likes him.
You owe me money. I hate you. I can't believe you're screwing me over. You're doing this terrible. Like everyone is like, he must be so charming to win them over despite how he's treated everybody. But we don't see that. We just see he's mistreated people and murdered a person.
When him and his buddy make up like the lie together, did you not like that scene? Because I love when there's
that was cute. I did like that. Yeah, when his one last for friend who was willing to tolerate him. That was a fun scene.
And so being a prequel and sort of like going back to like where he is at the beginning of this and where he is at the beginning of Rogue One, where he is like the most devout rebellion fighter that they have, right? He is the most loyal soldier. He is someone who is willing to die for the cause at the drop of a hat.
Right.
And the way this show takes him as someone who really does not give a shit at this point and does want nothing to do with the rebellion, and the way it's slowly showing how he gets from A to B, I think, again, it gets really, really good. But yeah, I do agree that I think the first 3 episodes are pretty good. I like the world building a lot. I like the design.
That's not what I said. You can't agree with me by saying that. I didn't say that.
No, Alex, we all agree with you. I'm saying, belabor the point.
No, I'm saying that.
I agree with you. It's a great first start of a show.
No, I'm saying I think
this is an argument. I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna start doing this to people where I'm like, look, I agree. I think I should have won that point. But if you want to argue that this. Yeah.
No, I'm saying that I agree that the first 3 episodes I think are a little slow. It gets better. I do think that once Lutheran shows up, played by Stellan Skarsgård, is one of the best characters in all of Star Wars. Once you kind of get,
I'm so glad I watched 4 because the thing he does in episode 4 that he doesn't do in episode 3, where he switches clothes and puts on the rings and is a different character. Him
getting ready for that. I loved. Right,
is a great scene. Him getting to watch Skarsgård act like this guy, getting ready to act as the other half of his personality is a real delight.
And did you get to Mon Mothma yet? Does she show up in 4?
Is she the senator with the Cadillac, the space Cadillac?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I know who that is.
No idea, but I like when the space Glades showed up. That was pretty cute.
she's like a key person, like in later stuff. Like if there's
she is in Return of the Jedi. She is the lady who is leading the rebellion. And Pitt says the speech about the Death Star plan and how many Bothas had to die for us to get this information.
Right, it's like her and like Akbar, like doing the briefing.
Okay, cool.
Yes, that is Mon Mothma, right? So she is like one of the most important characters in Star Wars, like sort of lore, right? She's a very important rebellion leader. She was a senator before she had to go on the run, and is there when the Empire falls at the end. So like we sort of have that context for her. I think that actress is incredible in this show. I had no idea that she has been playing Mon Mothma since Revenge of the Sith. George Lucas cast that actress as Mon Mothma for Revenge of the Sith, and then she's played.
I think she should be recast then. Anytime there's a moment where they're like in the junkyard and you see some engines and it's like those are pod racing engines. Like get those out of there. I do not need to see anything prequel related. You promised me this was better. Don't go justifying his decisions now.
See, I really disagree with that. I think that's how we ended up with J.J. Abrams' Star Wars movies, was because he wanted nothing. Like, lean in. Like, you can't undo the prequels.
Yes, you can.
So, like, lean in to create a cohesive universe. Like,
just ignore them. Just do everything else as a cohesive universe and ignore the stupid ones.
No, I mean, I think that like for a lot of people, that is their Star Wars. Like that is their universe.
No, not justified. Get rid of that. But also, like he goes into Skarsgård's ship, and it's like, oh, this is clearly the interior was done by the same company that did the interior of the Falcon. This is in the same year as the Millennium Falcon was built. Whatever. Like the design looks like the other things, and then to be like, oh, and then also we've got all these pod racing pieces lying around. It's like it's embarrassing itself. It's like you could just not mention it. You don't have to say canceled didn't happen, but just don't use their art.
They're just using world building. It's cool.
You want better hidden Easter eggs.
You don't have to. Yeah.
Alex, I'm super curious though. Like, just what, what is the good part of Star Wars to you? I guess, what is the thing? Because I think a lot of people they love a different part of it. I guess, and when I guess creators are taking the sandbox and say hey, this is the part that I want to emphasize. I'm kind of curious, what's the part that that does it for you, if there is a part that does it for you for Star Wars. I mean, I know
I've never thought about it before, so I'm guessing here, but I like a space western. I think that's awesome, and there's that vibe is really cool for me. I really like charming droids. That's crucial. They've done that a lot, and the fact that they keep coming out with ways to do it, really enjoy that. Whenever there's a new droid, and I'm like, I don't want to meet any more droids.
The non-human characters are generally pretty fun.
Yeah, the big guy whose job was to stand there and look intimidating but couldn't lie about it was a very charming moment. I like their non-human stuff's good. I do, yeah, I like fighting the Empire for sure. Definitely on the side of rebellion. And anti-fascist is a part that I like about it. I like to keep my heroes to be a little bit morally cleaner. That does help. I like a clean, because the Empire is so cartoonishly evil, like that, the meeting of the boardroom where they're like, what are we here for? We're here for evil, right? Everybody look at those uniforms. We're evil. We're doing evil. To have the good guy be like, actually, I'm kind of a gray area. It makes that a little bit harder for me. I like a Skywalker purity. I like, you go to a new planet, you discover new quirky characters, and then you do classic Western things. I enjoy those things, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
I like when Yoda is a baby. How hard is this to understand? The best thing that's ever happened to Star Wars was Yoda as a baby. This one has no baby Yoda in it.
No Yoda's of any age, I'm going to say.
So far. Give me another thing. Give me R2D2 as a baby. Give me a little tiny R2D2.
I don't know how that works. Teenage Yoda yet? Has anyone gotten this? Teen Yoda?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Yoda.
I'm sure that's coming, right?
I'm sure someone's done it.
Yeah.
It's kind of taking a while.
Well, I didn't like him when he was like young and did flips and shit in the prequels. I like.
Well,
I want him to be very old or very baby.
He was still 800 years old then.
Yeah, there's only on Yoda's timeline in the prequels, he's basically only 30 years older. But when you're 800 years already,
right.
But he's still the same age basically. But
I want him to be old and use a cane, or I want him to be a baby eating the last few eggs of an endangered species. That's how I want my Yoda.
But yeah, I mean, to me, it's one of my things that I really dislike under Disney Star Wars, and like I said, we've talked shit about the prequels. I have my entire life, but if there's
you defend them a lot around me. But anyway, please.
If there's one thing that the Disney things has made me actually appreciate and respect about the prequels, is that George Lucas tried to go for something with them, right? He didn't execute it, but at least each prequel showed you a series of new planets, a series of new ideas, new creature designs, new monsters, new pieces of world building, right? And the thing that has driven me most insane about Disney's Star Wars run is how everything has been about the same shit that we knew from the originals, the same family. They're the only characters that can matter.
That was Lucas's whole thing. Was there's only one droid in this universe, and he happens to show up over a course of 100 years in every important moment of the universe.
It's Forrest Gump's basically.
Exactly. They Forrest Gumped C-3PO into every moment in the history of this galaxy. It's insane.
But that's not. But he also showed us new planets. Not everything takes place on Tatooine. Not everything takes place with the same 6 characters, right? He introduced new characters. He introduced new stories, new concepts. He didn't just recycle the stuff we have seen over and over again. And that's the stuff where I like The Mandalorian. I didn't like Boba Fett. I didn't like Obi-Wan very much. But all 3 of their biggest Star Wars shows take place almost exclusively on Tatooine, right? And huge portions of them take place on Tatooine, even if they do go to.
Mandalorian's on a different planet every day. His whole thing is he goes to a new planet at the beginning of the episode and leaves at the end of the episode.
But 10 of the episodes have involved Tatooine. He's constantly coming back to Tatooine.
Well, I couldn't remember that because there's too. I hate learning new made up words, but
it's just that shrinking of the universe, making the universe feel so small, is the thing that really bums me out about Disney's take on the franchise. And then
so you're saying the thing that you like about this is that it's a prequel, so we learn more about the same guy that we already knew about.
We learn more about the universe. We learn more. We're going to new planets. We're seeing new cultures. the way they explore some of these cultures that we see on this show and the places this show goes, eventually you're gonna get to space Florida, and it's fucking awesome. It's
Right.
so
I'm
good.
just in the space
Um,
Appalachians right now,
I,
but
yeah,
I think the thing that I like about this, I mean, right, Anthony, you're talking about like a lot of the other movies are shrinking sort of the universe. I think the galaxy. This one I feel like is like it's making everything feel overwhelmingly big in a way that's interesting. I think
yeah,
where it's like this is very much like a ground level Star Wars, where it's like this is just like this feels oddly enough like a much more realistic version, I guess, in some way, where it's like we got like some mundane office jobs here, right? Like we got like
yeah.
some people who are like just like easily crushed under the boot of some stuff, and I think like for that, that's like a it's like, I did not think it was going to go this way, but it's like this is very much ground level. Like we're not like we don't have like an anyone overpowered. Like there's no force
yeah. I
mentioned.
mean,
There's
like
nothing.
a
You're
big
just like,
part
oh
of
man, I hope I survive.
what why I got annoyed when you said like get rid of all the prequel stuff. The way this show shows and executes Coruscant, which is something like it blows my mind that they never came back to Coruscant in the sequel trilogy. Like, what a great idea to show a planet that's one giant city, which was a huge part of the prequel. Show what that would look like post Luke and Vader, right in the modern. It's a slam dunk to show us what Coruscant would have looked like.
Yeah.
And the way so much of the show takes place on Coruscant, and the way they design it as like this Art Deco concrete hellscape, and like the different classes, and like where Cyril lives, and where Mon Mothma lives, and where Luthen has his shop. Like just the different layers and depth and design of
I mean, this
Coruscant
is what
is so
made the
well
Ryan Johnson
executed.
Star Wars the only good of the sequel trilogy is that he showed the space industrial complex and the rich people in space and the moral complexity of that. Like he did
Yeah.
that really well. And so far, this has not done that for me. It has not shown me anything yet in 4 episodes. This is my only criticism. Is just you should do more in 3 hours. You should accomplish more than this. I agree with you about the things you like. I just don't have this kind of time. I
Yeah,
just
that ratio
think
is
that,
off for you.
and I feel like like in a drama pilot, I've seen a lot of drama 1 hour pilots that get an incredible amount accomplished. And one thing I expect of them is that at the end of the hour, I have some idea of what the show is. And this feels like, look, you're watching a 9-hour movie. We know where you're not going to get up. What are you going to do? Leave? And then they're just going to take their time with it. And the 40-minute pilot should have gotten us to the point where at the end we're like, and now we know the show we're doing. But this is a thing that I think happens a lot in Star Wars universes. They're just like, we know you're not leaving. We own you. It's the Marvel stuff too. It's Disney's thing is like, we know you're not going anywhere. What else are you gonna do? And so then they take way too much time, and it's just too slow. But
I would be
like
curious,
parts
like
of it. It's just
what
too
would
slow.
this? I'd be curious, like what this would have looked like if it had to be released weekly, right? Like if we weren't
Isn't
like
it released weekly?
Yeah,
Well,
it
was
is
in
released
like
chunks?
the first 3, like they all
Oh, the
dropped
first
at the same
3?
time, right? It's like as in like what would it look like if they had to have gotten like that that episode break where it's like, okay, what's the thing that will get you back, like that would earn it? I was in for the ride. I think like generally like I was. We didn't have anything else, so we were like like itching to watch, and so it was like, okay, enough people have
Right.
gotten that I'm going to give it. And I've enjoyed the slow burn to kind of like simmer in it. Like I'm not binging
Yeah.
this one. I'm doing one episode a day. So
Yeah,
but yeah,
I mean,
like I'd be
Ezra,
curious.
again, like you and I can easily say like we know we're right. We can look at the consensus of this show. Like this is literally
No, I got as far as I did because I believe you, Anthony. What I'm telling you is no one is saying the first 3 episodes are the best show on television. Everyone's saying if you watch the whole thing. And one thing that does irritate me in general when people talk about shows is when they're like, you just have to get through the first 2 seasons and then it's amazing.
Yeah,
like there's too much good shows. There's too many good shows that I have not seen for someone to be like, you just give it 2 hours. Nothing will happen, and then it really takes off.
I mean, I don't know. I think like it's kind of the beauty of television is that you can have long form storytelling. Like The Wire, if you watch the first 3 episodes of The Wire, you're not going to know shit about what's happening. Nothing happens
but the
in
first
those.
scene of The Wire, you're like, holy shit, I want to see everything these people do. And in this, it's like at the end, you're like, end of the 3rd episode, you're like, oh, let's watch stuff.
Look, I think there's a level of care. There's a level of care and tension that I had throughout. Like I'm worried about. I'm interested in this dude. I'm worried about him enough that that tension like like, is enough to carry it through. And if it's like that's not hitting for you for an early part, that's fine. It's like when you try to watch a show that doesn't have like music sometimes, like it's just like, I'm not feeling this way I'm supposed to, and that's totally valid.
What does he do? What does Andor do? What
Like
does a
later?
day look like for Andor before, like the day before this started? What's his job?
At one
What
point,
are
he
his friends
stole a
like?
cube.
What are his hobbies? What does he care about? What does he do? Who is this guy? To be 4 hours into a show and not have any clue. I know what he was like as a kid, and I know what he's been like since he did a cold-blooded murder. I know nothing about him. I know nothing. This is a prequel show. I'm supposed to learn his origin story. I don't know who he is.
It's just weird. Like, again, doesn't land for you. It's cool. Like,
They're
I don't feel like
he can fly. He's a pilot. Cool.
No.
Okay.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't actually feel like I have like great like. This is not like a deeply like we don't feel like we follow his, I think, like perspective so closely that we're like inside his head and know everything he's feeling. I feel like I am like, a touch like at arm's length where it's like we're watching this happen. There's definitely stuff that I don't know about him. I think I'm like I feel like I'm invested enough, I guess, whether or not like I can say like his Teen Vogue like favorite color.
I'm 100 times more invested in Bix than I am in him. We saw some emotional range from Bix. We know what she does. We know the risks she's taking. We care about what her mission is. I know so much less. I want to see Skarsgård and his life. I'd like to see Mothman and her life. I want to let's hang out with the Mothman. Let's do it.
Mothman.
There's so much that I care about more than him, and I think he's a very charming actor, so I'm fine hanging out with him. And I like a Han Solo character enough, but I just wanted something to happen so that I could talk about it. Instead, I'm like, there's nothing that happened in 4 hours. And so you guys are all just like, boy, it gets good if you give it a week. And that's just so much time. Also, they called coffee calf now. It's just exhausting.
It's too much.
It's also look, I hate fascism and I don't like cops. Right. ACAB for life. However, when he was like, well, I did modify my uniform a little bit. I added some epaulette. Like the fact that he's into like sewing on his spare time. I know I liked him in that moment more than I've liked the murderer guy the whole time.
Look,
that was a charming moment, wasn't it?
I mean, look, I think he's an interesting dude. Like I'm enjoying just hanging out with everyone. I want to say like I don't want to belabor the point in terms of the time rate. You didn't get like 4 hours. Like this is like episode 1's like 40 minutes. Episode 2 is like 30 minutes.
He's talking
like,
about 90 minutes as if it's like 4 hours.
The pilot is 3 episodes of 40 minutes each, which if I add that up is equal to 2 hours. And then I watched another 40-minute episode. So we're clocking it at almost 3 hours.
Okay, so not 4.
That's not wildly. Well, no, you're in the next episode where I'll get close to 4 hours. That's when stuff's going to happen.
I don't know, man.
Some of the episodes
if you can't do it in 3, I'm just not sure why I think you can do it in 5. It's said that everybody else promised you're going to start. You just switched gears after 3 hours.
See, I think they do a lot in the first 3 episodes. You're just.
But you still you don't know anything about him. Did you tell me one thing Andor does?
Yeah,
he owes people money. Did he gamble? does he hurt these people? Why does he have no money? What are his interests? What are his hobbies?
I think this is a split of it. So I think fundamentally, at least even the first part, right? This was an enjoyable place for Anthony and I to hang out in. And it seems like this was an enjoyable place for you to hang out in, right?
Oh no, it was fine. I like the Star Wars universe. I like being around. I like droids. I like people who steal things. It's nice to hang out in. I just don't.
You want
it's
them to
just
move
also
it
kind of boring. Like you have why wouldn't you do something with that?
Again, I think they do a lot with it. That's just like.
But what did you tell me? One thing that Cassian likes, or does, or feels, or believes?
He wants to find his sister.
Yeah, right. Which is a thing that only exists for the first 4 minutes and then has been dropped entirely for the next 3 hours.
He works with his mom. He has an ex-girlfriend that he's still really good friends with. They occasionally steal and sell stuff to survive because they're on a poor backwater planet and they're just trying to get by every day. Like he is somebody who's just trying to doesn't really believe in anything and is angry and is a young dude living under a fascist state and is slowly coming to the realization that he's going to believe in something and understand and want to fight for something. It's I don't know.
There are good shows with bad pilots, and I am ready to believe that that's what this is. But this has just been a boring pilot. It's so boring. All right, we got to move on.
Right.
I do like that the guy with the blue eyes from The Bear is there. That's exciting. I liked when he showed up.
Is that his friend?
He's interesting.
The brother from the bear who gets stabbed in the butt, and he's got those really piercing blue eyes. It's crazy how blue his eyes are.
He's had a good year between this, The Bear, and The Dropout. All three of like my favorite shows of this year.
I haven't seen The Dropout yet. That's interesting.
Dropout's good.
Good for him.
Really, really good in that.
All right, we have a little bit of business to take care of, so let's talk about some business. All right, so first of all, I got 2 emails I want to read. First of all, J number 1 has been going through our back catalog and has a lot of feedback from the old days, and I was like, we probably can't do anything with that.
No,
there was one
George Lucas this podcast. You're gonna do the Read It and Weep special edition. You're gonna go back through. You're gonna add blinks when there were no blinks. You're gonna add people screaming no. You're gonna remaster the podcast. It's gonna be a big.
I hate that. I really hate that guy, and I do think we should probably have put this thing to bed to punish him for ruining it. But that's the thing that I was feeling with watching the show was like, I would rather this show not be connected to Star Wars. Why couldn't this just be a space show? Because does this need to be in this universe? Did you have to show me this logo for me to care about it? If this was just a good sci-fi show that everybody liked, that was from the Bourne Identity guy, that was exactly the same plot, everything was exactly the same, except maybe the designs were a slight bit off, so it wasn't from the same catalog. But like, this feels no attachment to George Lucas, and like at some point.
I don't know. This feels to me like the most Star Wars.
No, it's got a lot of Star Wars stuff. But I'm saying is, why does it have to? Why couldn't it just be like a great show that I don't have to think about George? I don't have to see George Lucas's name on it every time.
And why? I know you don't like the prequels, right? But like, why you shit on George Lucas?
What you were just saying, I hate the way he ruined his original trilogy.
Yeah, but
he made 2 good movies. He made 2 good movies in a trilogy, 1.5 good movies in a trilogy. And then he was like, but I wished the whole time I could have ruined them. So I waited till they were a success, and then I ruined them. And then I made 3 prequels that are awful and ruined that franchise. And then we're just going to keep making stuff forever. Why do I have to see his name?
I think that's just such a misreading of the man. Like, everything you said is true. It's completely factual. That is what happened. But I think, again, like, especially when you compare George Lucas's run of the franchise and just his entire career to like a big company like Disney, right? Like, George Lucas made the prequels not because he wanted to ruin Star Wars or whatever. It was because he literally was changing the way movies were made again, right?
Yeah.
That was the impetus behind making the prequels, was inventing entire new workflows, entire new processes, literally creating digital cameras that were invented to shoot the prequels, right? Changing the way that we make movies. That is what he did. He is like, you cannot like his work or whatever.
It
like,
just feels like somebody was like, if you're like, look, they invented the automobile because they wanted a more efficient way to egg your house. Like, it's cool that he invented the digital camera for that. Like, that is like one of the more like, at least the original camera was like to win a bet and look at a horse. This is like, no, we wanted to make the next generations of cameras so that we could show you the Senate in Star Wars and we could talk about trade blockades for 40 minutes.
Look, he wasn't like the best writer or whatever at that point in his life. But I have a lot of respect for George Lucas and as a artist and as a creative. And
the thing that you were just making fun of is the thing that like gets me so worked up about George Lucas is the way he screwed with his original movies. And the thing about that's most important is when I watched those on VHS, they had this interview with him at the beginning, and he specifically says, everything I did in these now was what I wanted to do originally but couldn't. And all he's saying there is that the reason the movies were good was completely on accident because he didn't have the money to ruin them. And as soon as he got money, he proved that was right by making 3 terrible movies. Star Wars was good on accident is the most important thing I think you can take away from this story. Ez?
Oh, we lost Ez.
Oh, sorry. I'll put one other thing on it. Oh. I think I will buy that the thing that did it for him is not the thing that does it for you, and also not the thing that does it for most people. So I think like it's
anybody else. I think the thing that did it for him was creating new cameras and making money.
Well, look, everyone loves making money. That's great.
I'm lukewarm on it.
Well, maybe you should. Can I have your licensing for all your toys and merch? Then,
This
please?
is why I should. Right. This is why I should be better at it. So
No,
I could
I'll
make
I'll
something.
take that. I agree. The Alex Falcone name is not going anywhere. I will take all licensing rights. What do I have on? I have a scrunchie that I can give you, and
anyway, finish your pitch.
Okay, great. So no, I think that the thing, the cool part of it for him, I think that the tech part, like that was so. There's a much better overlap with the thing that everyone else liked, I guess, when he had those restrictions and we had those other voices in the room also, I guess, right? And then like when he was like off on his own, where it's like, okay, I can make the thing I want to make. Turns out the thing that he wanted to make is not the thing that we loved in the same way. But I think the thing that's most interesting about Star Wars for me is like everyone basically has their own personal Star Wars. I'm going to say the your brain has been digesting that, and all the stuff on it, and and playing up some parts and playing down other parts, as long as you've been in it. And like, there's not really a Star Wars canon. There's like all these individual headcanons, I think, because as you've like said, like, oh, I've tossed out this part, right? This is the part that does it for me. And I think the idea that like, yeah, the person who like was in charge of making it, like, oh, I hate his version of it. Like actually turns out when he doesn't have the other parts.
I also just like that one thing. The reason why when we talk about George Lucas, I get angry is because he was also like a ruthless union buster. His work practices were awful. He's treated people who's worked for him so badly. He built all of his studios just across the border in Mexico, so he wouldn't have to pay anybody fairly. Like everybody who was in the prequel got $100 and no rights because he made sure to keep the unions out of stuff he did. Like he was a piece of shit.
I mean, okay, look, that's not great. My dad also worked for him. Did not have a problem that side, but maybe it was different divisions.
Right, and it was in a non-unionized position to begin with. But yeah,
that's true.
Okay, so the point was this is the letter section. So anyway, so Jay had some feedback from episode 131.
Oh my God, what do we do then?
Apparently, we spent a lot of time. We were angry at how much time was spent in the Iliad describing the shield design. And what Jay wants us to know is that we were failing to realize that was an early example of product placement sponsored by the Armorers Guild. Anyway, that was my favorite piece of feedback from
we still had pacing issues then.
12
like,
years ago,
I think you've had 10 chapters. Like, why is this such a bad pilot?
Look, I mean, pacing issues are definitely a thing that
what do you know about Hector? Nothing. He cares about his family. That's it.
This is very, very true. Okay, we also got an email that I wanted to read from Paul. Paul says, "Hi, Alex. A long time, first time. I've been listening since my wife Annie told me that you watched Gunhead, and I knew immediately that this was the podcast for me. We've been loving your year-long movie watching game, and have actually tried to watch along with you guys.
Oh wow!
So far, PJ is the only movie we haven't been able to see, as it is not available in any form in the UK."
But you watch the girl with the smile, or the girl who laughs, or whatever.
The girl with talent.
The girl with talent.
Yeah, the one in Russian that we. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's funny.
We joined the Metreon just so we could have a chance to win the DVD.
Oh yeah, whatever happened with that? Did we actually send that out?
Yeah. We mailed it to Germany at great cost.
It got close. Cool. It overshot them.
Oh man, and we probably forgot we survived, and so we've been supporting you ever since. Great, that's perfect. That's the story we like. I just listened to the Princess Mononoke episode, and if you haven't already fixed your target movie, can I suggest not The Illusionist 2007, Edward Norton's tepid CG Magic Fest, but The Illusionist 2010, the whimsical French animated comedy about a hapless stage magician.
Huh?
I have not heard of this. I had settled on The Illusionist 2007. But I am going to make the promise that if in our final 4 episodes of the season we do get near Edward Norton's 2007 Illusionist, I will also watch The Illusionist from 2010 because that sounds awesome.
Here's the fun thing, Alex. If we continue, actually do have a card that makes me move via title, via like same thing. So
nice.
we can go directly from Illusionist to Illusionist if we wanted to.
That's excellent because as Paul adds, I think it would be right up your alley, but it would be almost impossible to get to due to its limited voice cast. Not with a power card, Paul.
Not with a power card. Also, Alex, I want my power card.
Yeah, you'll get a power card. Even if you don't watch it as part of the podcast, I think you should definitely seek it out. I genuinely loved that you, Anthony, Ezra, and Hunter had to say about what you had to say about Princess Mononoke, which is one of my favorite all-time movies. Keep up the good work. Paul in the UK. Thanks, Paul.
This movie
I will check that out. I've never heard of that.
Very old-fashioned-y kind of art style to it.
Yeah. I'm
Looks
very
cool.
into this. Also, my wife will
And-
watch anything French, so I think I can sell this pretty easily.
I gotta say, my biggest problem with Edward Norton's thing is like if you're gonna do magic in movies,
Yeah, do
don't do
magic.
CG magic.
Yeah.
Just and you know what? Cartoon, skip that issue because you
Yep.
can't. It's all gonna be the same thing. It's totally cool.
Right.
It's totally
That's
cool that
great.
way.
That's great. And then our last thing we got to do is we have a new meat buddy to thank, as mentioned before, as pronounced properly before. B from Carrie NC, and B says, I've been doing, as you know, when you become a meat buddy by going to metreon.com and you support our show, you get a thank you segment of your choice up to and including anything we can do in 6 minutes. So B says, I've been doing dad film school for my kids who are 10 and 13, which is spiritually related to your condescending film school. Awesome. So far, awesome. We've gone through a lot of films so far, but I want each host to name 2 films that they think are important for aspiring film addicts. So what are your top 2 films that anybody ages 10 and 13 should watch to become part of the greater longtime film canon? As also,
Old
you
Boy
have
and a
you were-
Serbian Tale.
I mean, you do have to watch Old Boy for sure.
Yeah.
That's crucial.
10
I
and
mean,
13
I
is
assume
interesting.
by saying that they've watched a lot of important films that they're not focused on things that are PG-13 or better because it's too limiting. But man, that part scares me. The kid part of this is very, very
well, here's the
intimidating.
thing. I think you just pitch it out, and then like B will figure out like what's
What's the appropriate age? Yeah.
There's, starting with like someone like Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki, right?
Yeah,
Miyazaki makes
obvious.
great movies of all ages, but also have like incredible filmmaking things. But yeah, I would go. My suggestion, especially for around that age, and if you've already been doing this, you probably covered a lot of these. But I would go with the movies that inspire wonder in like the art of the art of filmmaking. Like one of my favorite compliments I can give for a movie, right? Like I think one of the best things you can say about a movie when you come out of it is that that's going to be a movie that makes filmmakers, right? So like I remember like when I first saw like Pacific Rim, right, which is a movie that I think is like pretty fine. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but I feel like that's the type of movie that if I saw that at 10 years old, that would make me want to make movies. Right. And I think that's like the highest.
You don't want to make these kids want to consume movies. You want to turn them into like you want to ruin their lives by making them chase film contracts.
I don't just mean like make movies, but like just love movies, be involved in movies, be interested in how movies are made. Right. I think like Jurassic Park was like certainly that from one of those movies that was that for me. Early Tim Burton films were that for me. Right. Like movies that like made me sort of like understand that like movies can be different and can be wide ranging and showed me something magical and new that I've never seen before. And like, I feel like I still chase that high when I go into movies, right? I'm still like looking for like that wonder to like be put back into me. So I would suggest if you haven't, already covered the classics like Jurassic Park, I was very young when I saw movies like Terminator 2, which is certainly a little bit more violent. It's R-rated, but like I think
really
Terminator
good.
2 is a great.
But you have to see Terminator 1 first.
I don't know if I did see it in that order.
Megan didn't, and Megan was like not surprised when Schwarzenegger helped out. And I think that moment is so cool and powerful. I really think that you gotta loop them together. I'm gonna give you that as a bonus. You include both of them, but yeah, Terminators totally.
I have the Tim Burton one. Remind me. I think my favorite Tim Burton movie is Big Fish. And it's a a father-son relationship at the heart of it. I really love that one. I think, and I think there's a lot of like really cool magical realism stuff. It's like it feels. I love the fairy tale elements of it. I think that's maybe not a bad age range. Also, that could be in there.
Wait, was that 2? What was the other one?
I only had one so far.
Just the one. What's the other one? Yeah,
I don't know. Loop back around.
Okay. Well, so obviously the most important thing you can show them, Apollo 13. We all know that. One of the greatest films ever made. It'll inspire wonder. It'll make them care about the space program and all of the things you can do for humanity. So obviously Apollo 13 is up there.
I mean, the 10-year-old might be a little young, not for Apollo 13, but I would suggest like 13 is kind of a good age, I think, to see like 2001 on a big screen if you haven't seen that
Mm,
before. Um it's certainly, it's a little bit slower. They might not get it all of it. I also think
yeah, that
like
sounds tough. I feel like you have to
this
be
might
old to like that.
this might sound a little crazy, but I think I was about 13 the first time I saw Clockwork Orange. Um
I was
I mean,
definitely like 12, and I
yeah,
think that's not a good thing.
no, I think that's like the prime age to see that movie. I think it's a very mature movie, but it's about so much. I think like that's one of my favorite movies ever made. And I think it like
There's
is
some
a
things
very
about it.
good movie to see around that age, because that movie is about being a teenager. It's about rebellion. It's about the follies of youth, right? And I think it's one of those things that like it hits you harder when you're a teenager than it will as an adult. Um,
Yeah. I'm on the
and
fence about that one. I read the book and I love the book, and I because of the book and because of what the author has said about the movie, I do not like the movie nearly as much because the movie is missing the 18th chapter of the book, which is the if you're talking about it as being a thing about teenagehood is like the most crucial chapter of the book. And I
well, yeah, I
think
mean, he was doing a different movie though. He's
well, he was doing the movie based on the American version of the book where they lopped off the last chapter because they thought it would be more fun if it was violent and didn't have a satisfying ending. And so he did not have that chapter when he was making the movie,
Yeah,
which is
but
very
also
strange.
the movie he was making is like a lot of Kubrick's work is about like the cynical like systems and the way human error will lead to things inevitably going wrong. Like
Yeah, and it is weird for
he
me
was
to
trying to
recommend a
tell a
movie.
different story.
Yeah, and that's weird for me to be somebody be like, I don't like the story you wrote. I'm going to adapt your book into my story and have it be a different counter story to the story you wrote. And I do think the book is so good, and I think that 18th chapter is what makes the book so amazing
It's
and
the
is really
21st chapter,
or
right?
21st, sorry, 21st. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. The 21st chapter is the one that really makes it for me. So,
But yeah, I mean, also I think that like, I mean, one, it's not like he did to Clockwork Orange what like Verhoeven did to Starship Troopers, which is straight up like,
no,
fuck
okay,
your work,
to be
it's
clear,
garbage. I'm gonna
that
make fun
rules
of it.
though. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
but like, I mean, Kubrick like adapted all of his stuff was an adaptation. Or almost all of it was, and it was usually like Stephen King also really hates his adaptation of The Shining because it wasn't
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
faithful. But like Kubrick like adapted stuff by making it his own thing,
Yeah, and I do like
2001's
The
and
Shining, the movie, and I don't think I like the book much. But um, so my other thing though, so I think obviously Apollo 13. Um, I'm gonna do three, I guess. Number two very clearly is Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and
That's what
that
I was actually just looking at.
it
Good.
works great for kids, and then also has a lot of depth for adults that would like matter more to them later. And also, I think that has a wonder about filmmaking for me
Hmm.
that like of that now you see an animated character in a movie, it's not that surprising, but to have a 2D animated character in a movie I think would still be impactful.
Yeah.
And boy, just love that film so much every time I come back to it. And then I think
Well,
for my
especially if they're at an age and kind of don't know enough to not have any frame of reference about what Who Framed Roger Rabbit is. Like I
Mhm.
can imagine being a kid, even in 2022, and sitting down to watch a movie that like starts out animated, and you're like, "Oh, this is an animated movie," and then all of a
yeah,
sudden, fucking people show up. And
yeah,
they start like walking around and interacting. Like I can only imagine what it must be like to see that movie for the first time. If you have no idea what you're about to
yeah,
watch, if you have no
yeah,
idea what the movie is, um, that must
yeah.
be a very cool experience.
And then my third thing I would say is there's got to be a Wes Anderson, and for me I think it has to be Fantastic Mr. Fox, which is
Yeah.
like one of my favorite things, which is easily my top 5 favorite movies of all time, and would work great as a kid. I also think Moonrise Kingdom is not my is like lower, a little bit lower for me, but would be so fun for a kid as well. Um, it would be very funny for a 10 and 13-year-old. I think they would really appreciate it. Um, oh, but that also reminds me about Coraline. I should also put Coraline on there. I just really love stop motion.
Coraline's great,
Um,
but it also just legitimately
Dark.
freaky. Yeah,
It's super dark, but dark in a way that kids can handle.
Yeah.
I would put Coraline on there, maybe with Fantastic Mr. Fox. Anyway, I've got given too many now.
I got a couple. So I realized this is. I think this is maybe a perfect movie, and we think we saw this for the show. Was The Sting?
Yeah,
And I like because I want. I mean, I think if if you're getting into movies, it's like you have to kind of like be comfortable going back a little earlier, and I think this is one that's like it's a period piece of the time, and so I think that makes it timeless, and like it's just is, it's just like it's just such a fun movie to be in. I think for you
Great
feel
music.
cool being in the movie. Yeah,
yeah, very
yes,
fair.
that's right. Create a ragtime revival, which is amazing.
Yeah,
And I think similar, I guess, where it's like these are movies that are somewhat out of time and the dialogue is very cool. But but Anthony, what you mentioned, Brick, I think is a really wonderful one because one, this is also low budget, and so if they are like, if you ever want to make a thing, like how can you make something that is very cool, and like actually would like stand its own? And I think having those like timeless elements, I guess of like this is already anachronistic in some ways.
Also, you're 13. I mean, I kind of said like the 10-year-old might be too young to watch some of this stuff, but
Yeah.
the 13-year-old might be a little too old, maybe already jaded enough to enjoy this. But like a 10-year-old is a really good age if you were interested in showing them like the Marx Brothers Duck Soup. Or like an old Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin short, right? Like they're silent films or they're like early black and white comedies, but like especially like 10 years old, the Marx Brothers, because so much of it is physical comedy, so much of it is like really clever, simple wordplay or like really
Yeah.
weird visual gags. I think like that's a really good age to show them if you want, and like your kid will have cool brown like film points, being like, yeah, I watched Duck Soup with my dad when I was 10, and it like made me love comedy or whatever. Like there is like that's a good age to go back if you want to show them like really old stuff that is so foundational for modern comedy. And like the Marx Brothers holds up so well. I mean, even like something like the Three Stooges, which is like something that's definitely kind of more like simple or lowbrow or whatever, still like a pie in the face or being poked in the eyes is still funny no matter the time period, right? So like I think like that's a good genre and stuff to go back to. Especially maybe like the Buster Keaton stuff that is like incredible stunts that like if you look at like the general with the train when he's like tossing the logs off the front, like that is just still impressive in 2022 because it was like something he was actually doing, and if he fucked it up, he would have died.
I don't know how a 10 or 13-year-old who have been watching CG stuff for their whole lives would feel about this, but and I don't want to be an old man about it, but I'm so passionate about this, but I do think as much practical stuff as you can show them, like real effects, practical effects stuff, stop motion, like getting things that are just physically beautiful objects and incredible, impressive things and not CG, I think is really helpful. But that'd be my feeling. But I don't want to be the guy who's like, you can only watch cartoons from the 30s. Like that's also not good.
Yeah, no, but it holds up really well. And I guess I'll toss in not a movie, but the Every Frame of Painting YouTube channel is just really good for I think understanding how some of these different things, like like some of the physical comedy or maybe how some scores are working. Just like like, it's a really good way. Like I think I understood some things that were going on that I did not get as a result of that.
I mean, such an important thing for me and caring about film was DVD special features, and so I do think some how stuff is made. YouTube is a crucial side project to this to see like. Watch it because I love Leica movies. Kubo and the Two Strings is another one where it's like one of the most beautiful things ever created by humans. And I feel like one of the things that really, really adds to it is watching behind the scenes footage where somebody is standing in a pirate ship that goes up to their waist and building having the logs explode one by one, or like I actually got to see the Leica exhibit in a museum where where you had a bunch of props from these different movies, and just being able to see the physical things is so cool. So yeah, some sidecar that would have been on a DVD special feature, I think, is crucial. All right, we have to wrap it up. That's it for B from NC. I hope that helps you with your kids' film school. And I love Dad Film School. I think it's a fun project, and also could totally backfire. Maybe your kids will hate movies because of it, right? Isn't that how it works? Because you like it? I don't know.
It'll be all about TV now, right?
Yeah, take your shots. Yeah, they're really into the theater.
Yeah, that's right.
I appreciate it. And thank you so much for becoming a Meat Buddy. You can become a Meat Buddy by going to Metreon.com. And we appreciate everybody who supports our show. That is it for today. We'll be back again next week. Next week, we're going to actually do episode 39, The Virgin Suicides. Next week will be beginning of the end. It's our final round of episodes before the game is complete. And I'm excited to watch Virgin Suicides. I think it'll be a nice holiday movie.
Yeah.
Seems like a good time to be enjoying that. You can send us feedback, as always, podcast at read-weep.com. And we appreciate you sticking around. Esdor, thanks for hanging out.
Pleasure.
And T0N4, thanks for chatting Star Wars with us.
Happy to be here, Alex.
Oh, I was gonna say, because they call robots by these call signs, but like R2D2 is like the model number, right? Like, are there 1,000? But then you meet the other ones, and they're like, there are other R2
that's an R2
units?
unit. That's an R2 unit, but they made the D2 is like there's a bunch of different like things.
Right, but this is a very limited number of names you have from that.
They might have other numbers or letters we don't know about. Maybe there's like maybe their outfits are huge. Maybe they got like that print symbol.
That could be. Or are there repeats? Are there multiple?
Some dupes.
Yeah, there's gotta be some dupes. Like how
is where do droids get their personalities from in the Star Wars universe?
Oh, that's a good question.
You know, where does
that? It's an AI thing where they're given a certain set of parameters and then they like learn and evolve.
It could be a droid god.
Could be droid god. Also a great guess. Yeah, these are all good options. All right, we'll be talking. We'll go back to the universe next week. We'll get back out of this old timey thing. We'll talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.